afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today here in the Bennett Martin Heritage Room for Nebraska authors to hear from mostly newly minted Nebraska authors who are joining us today. We have 6 very brave speakers that are going to be sharing pieces of their own personal story with you today. My name is Lisa Gwill, and I am with the Cultural Centers of Lincoln and the Asian Community and Cultural Center. For the Cultural Centers, I'm the Welcoming Communities Coordinator. So what that means is I get to coordinate all kinds of projects that are connected to Lincoln's welcoming work, helping to make sure that we have enough resources for immigrants and refugees who are moving to Lincoln and beginning to call Lincoln home, so that these newcomers can thrive in our community and bring their full selves, find belonging, and make incredible contributions to our city. So I do want to start out just by giving a quick hand to my speakers today. You're going to be hearing a variety of different types of stories. Did you know that we have over 30,000 new Americans who call Lincoln home? So about 10% of Lincolnites are foreign-born and choose to build their home in Lincoln, Nebraska, which is a very beautiful and special thing. And it also means that there are about 30,000 distinct stories for different individuals. There are so many pathways, so many ways to arrive in Lincoln, so many different reasons to come and settle in our city. And we feel that that's really important information to share with Lincolnites at large. Sometimes, even though Lincoln is so very diverse, we still have neighbors who get caught in a little bit of a white bubble, and they don't necessarily know who their newcomer neighbors are. And so we've been excited for this New Nebraskans book project in partnership with University of Nebraska Press and UNL to pull these stories together and publish a book about a year from now that will feature not just these stories, but a few dozen more. These are first-person essays written by the folks who are telling their own story. And so we have all different types of voices being used, all different types of experiences represented in order to demonstrate to Lincoln the amazing diversity in stories and journeys that we have, and the incredible contributions that our new American neighbors bring to our city. When this book is published, we do have a few hopes. We want these stories to be cultivating connection, because we know that we need this now more than ever. And we want to drive a spirit of curiosity and inclusion among Lincolnites at large. We want more stories, more events, more conversations, and more projects like this to continue to uplift the richness that we have in our community. So you will hear today from 6 speakers from a variety of places all over the globe, telling you just a little piece of their story. And then at the end of this, we'll have a short Q&A if you have questions about the project or for any of our speakers. And then we invite you to join us upstairs for a reception where you can chat more with any of us about anything that you would like and enjoy a few international treats. Our first speaker is Tatiana Koksharova. She was born in, Severodonetsk, Ukraine, and she studied at the Technological Institute. In 2013, Tatiana started her own handmade textiles business called Araneya, where she created crocheted accessories and clothing. When the war began in Ukraine in 2022, she came to the United States with her daughter and settled in Lincoln. Today, Tatiana is a graduate of Echo Collective's Entrepreneur Program and continues to grow her small business, building a new life in Lincoln. Welcome, Tatiana.
Hi, my name is Tatiana Koksharova. I'm from Ukraine, and sorry about my pronunciation, because I'm there are just small part from my story. On that terrible day in February 2022, the war broke out again. It was an ordinary day. People were out, walking, shopping. Some were rushing home from work. I had plans for the weekend, but the next morning I woke up. The terrifying explosions. The news said that war had started and everyone should take shelter. It was terrifying to hear explosions louder than thunder. The walls shook and windows rattled, with some houses losing their glass. At that moment, I was glad my parents didn't have to witness it. My 11-year-old daughter and I slept in the basement, wearing boots and coats. It was February and it was freezing. I don't wish anyone to experience that fear of not knowing whether they will be alive by evening. I would wake up in the morning in the basement, not knowing if I would make it to the evening. All my values changed in a single day. It no longer mattered. It no longer mattered what color to dye my hair or which bag to take for a walk. All I could think about was how to survive, what to eat, and what warm clothes to wear to avoid freezing in the basement. I would go up to my apartment with the fare just to get some water for tea. I lived on the third floor. By then, there was no gas, as the buildings were being bombed. I boiled eggs in an electric kettle for my daughter. Then the electricity was cut off too. We washed in a basic with ice water, taking 5 minutes turns between bombings. Clothes were always nearby, ready to run back to the basement to safety. I didn't know when it would all end. There were many people in the basement. Some had fits of hysteria. Many yelled, and others argued with each other. I was so tired of hearing it all, and I wanted to badly to get out of there, but I was terrified to go outside with my daughter, let alone to travel anywhere under the bombs. Many people were killed by bombs near their homes. Bodies lay in the streets and people were buried right on the children's playgrounds. I lived in the basement for 2 weeks, but couldn't bear to see it any longer. Nor did I want my daughter to witness it. I had a friend in America named Alexander. He was from my hometown, but had moved to the States in his youth. We had been in touch for a long time, and he helped me escape to Romania by arriving for me and my daughter to stay with some people there. During a brief lull between bombings, I had 10 minutes to pack everything into the backpack. I didn't know what to take with me, and I didn't know if I would ever come back home. My daughter and I took only the essentials that could fit in a backpack, photos of my parents and keepsakes we all left behind. It took us several days to reach Romania. It felt strange not to hear gunfire and to be able to stand freely on the street. We stayed in Romania for 3 weeks. It was a wonderful time with kind people who helped us. My friend Alexander insisted that I come to US. Of course, I was happy to come here. He lived in Lincoln, Nebraska. I heard about this state from American movies. I associated Nebraska with corn and cows, and I couldn't wait to see it all in person. We flowed to Nebraska by plane. Lincoln greeted us with strong winds. The plane was shaking a lot, and it felt like we might fall at any moment. But I wasn't scared. It would have been frustrating to travel such a long way, finally arrive in America, and then crash on the first day because of the wind. We arrived in Lincoln, and I've stayed here ever since. I love the people who live there. They are amazing. It doesn't matter how you look. You can even walk around in a pajamas, and no one will judge you. Everywhere you go, people treat you with respect. Here I learned to drive a car, which was a big achievement for me. I love traveling to Colorado and adore the mountains. Nebraska's climate is very similar to Ukrainians. There are also 4 seasons here, with hot summers and cold winters. However, Nebraska has very strong wind. It's especially windy in spring, but it's dry here and there is less mud. If it snows in winter, it melts quickly. The most amazing thing I enjoy in Lincoln is American football. It's wonderful how all the locals gather together at the stadium to watch the game. It feels like a huge, grand celebration where everyone is dressed in red. I have had the chance to go to a few games in VIP seats and even saw the players up close. I loved it too much. Now I always look forward to the new football season. My daughter Alona, who is now 13, she goes to Park Middle School and is learning English. In Lincoln, the schools are so interesting and the teachers are very kind. They always praise the children and inspire them to learn. The learning process itself feels like a game. My daughter really enjoys it. She's thrilled with her school. They mold clay, paint, plant flowers, and work on such interesting projects. At first, I helped her with homework, but now she does it on her own. She really enjoys it here. In Lincoln, there are many organizations that help refugees and displaced persons. One of these organizations is Eco Collective. They helped me start my business in America. I even took a training course with them. It helped me understand all the rules and how to properly file taxes. My business is handmade knitwear. I knit hats, scarves, bags, and swimsuits. I really love it, especially when customers enjoy my products. Also, I am attending the local community college, studying English. I'm incredibly grateful that fate brought me to Lincoln. This city has become my home. So.
Our next speaker is Raul Sarmiento, who is originally from Colombia and has built his career in Nebraska by building bridges and creating opportunities for the Latino community. After several years working his way up in a local bank, where he helped to launch programs supporting immigrants and entrepreneurs, Raul now focuses on his family business and his mission of empowering Latinos to succeed in the U.S. Welcome, Raul.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. Like she said, I'm Raul Sarmiento. I'm originally from Colombia, and I call Lincoln home since 2016. Here's the part of the story that I picked. One night after my shift at Red Lobster, I was cleaning my section of tables with my usual attention to detail. I always took pride in doing things right. Apparently, my meticulousness caught the eye of a customer who was dining nearby. He came up to me and said, "You're doing such a good job, young man. Thank you." That simple compliment sparked a conversation that would change everything. He and his wife, along with her mother, asked about my background, where I was from, how I ended up in Lincoln, and I shared my family story. We talked for about an hour. As it turned out, the wife was the head of customer service at Union Bank and Trust. By the end of the conversation, she gave me her business card and asked me, "Would you be interested in working at a bank?" She believed in me even when I wasn't sure I was ready. She saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at the time. It was an opportunity I couldn't pass up, even though I doubted my English skills. My mother had worked at a bank for 20 years, and for some reason, I always wanted to do the same thing. So I took the leap, trusting that this was my chance to make it happen. When I started at the bank, I wasn't sure that I was ready, especially with my English still developing. It was a completely new world for me. I remember struggling with basic words like withdraw during training. But I absorbed everything, and I could about accounts, credit, and the financial system. At the time, I wasn't a permanent resident, so there were limitations I had to navigate. Even though I didn't feel ready, I naturally gravitated toward taking a lead. I took on small projects as I worked to make my branch one of the best, contributing to its success in an annual competition between branches. I started as a teller, and when there was a shift in staff, I found myself the only teller left after a couple of weeks of starting. That forced me to take on more responsibility and grow into a leadership role, even though my managers probably didn't expect it, and honestly, neither did I. A year and a half later, I was offered the position of assistant manager. I applied, interviewed, and got the job. The person who gave me that opportunity is now one of my best friends in Lincoln. And it's just another example of how the people here welcomed me, saw my potential, and gave me the chance to prove myself. When I became an assistant manager, I had gained a better understanding of the financial system, but I still faced challenges due to my immigration status. I couldn't get a loan myself, even though I worked at the bank, which sparked a curiosity in me to understand how the system worked for people like me. As an assistant manager, I began to prove myself by leading and coaching others. But more importantly, I developed a passion for helping Latinos who were navigating the same struggles as I faced. Helping these customers who were transitioning into life in Lincoln became one of the most rewarding parts of my job. I didn't want them to go through the same difficulties I did, so I focused on building trust and providing guidance. After a few months as an assistant manager, I applied for the branch manager position. Instead of an interview, they offered me the job. This opportunity was once again given to me by someone who believed in me. This person became one of my biggest mentors, and it reinforced my belief that Lincoln's community has welcomed me since the beginning and helped me grow. I was also accepted into a leadership program at the bank, which set me on a path for further growth. As a branch manager, I spent 2 years learning more about the bigger picture of banking, especially after joining the leadership program. During this time, my career progress aligned with the progress in my immigration status. I became a permanent resident then, which was a big milestone for me. In the leadership program, I had to develop a project that would impact the bank. Given my passion for helping others, I saw this as an opportunity to make a real difference for people like me. I used this project to connect with the people in the leadership, including the CEO of the bank who hadn't taken over yet at the time. I shared my story and pitched the idea of helping the bank lend to non-residents. This led to the development of a pilot program that to this day allows Union Bank to lend to non-residents. This is something I'm incredibly proud of, as it is a lasting impact I had on the bank and the community. After this conversation with the CEO, he believed in me and gave me the opportunity to create a new position within the bank. We worked together to design the role of a multicultural banking officer, and that became my next chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. Our next speaker is Dr. Helen Fagan. Helen is a leadership, emotional intelligence, and cultural competency scholar and practitioner. She is the founder of Helen Fagan and Associates, which provides consulting and leadership coaching to organizations, communities, and executives. In addition to a PhD in human services with a specialization in leadership from the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, Dr. Fagan holds multiple certifications in emotional intelligence and is a trained executive coach. Also an existing Nebraska author, and is also contributing to our book as well. So we thank her for that. Welcome, Helen.
So I'm one of the old ones here. My story goes all the way back to, well, you'll hear. Okay, have you ever gazed on a field of wildflowers in awe? A variety of flowers randomly together in a field, all thriving. That is a beautiful depiction of unity coming together. Ever since we arrived in Lincoln, Nebraska in 1992, I have sensed this. It was odd at first, then it struck me that the culture of Nebraska is this calm sense of, it's going to be okay, we're in this together, we'll figure it out. Of course, I'm not saying our community is perfect. We have issues, but we also have really passionate people working diligently on those issues. I was born in Iran to an influential, wealthy family. My father was in charge of export oil for the National Iranian Oil Company. He had a grand vision of his children being educated in England and then returning to Iran to be leaders like him. He also knew that learning English would be a lot easier for us the sooner we got exposed to the language. So when I was 12, we all, my two brothers and I and my mom, moved to England. My dad's job required him to travel a lot, so he'd come visit us in England as much as he could. 3 years passed very quickly. All was well, until England notified my parents that they wouldn't renew our visas. This was the late 1970s. With the unrest in Iran, my dad thought it would be best for us to come to the United States to continue our education. We got visas and were accepted at Florida Central Academy in the heart of Florida. But because they had a boarding school option, my mom wasn't given a visa to join us like she did in England. So the three of us, ages 14, 15, and 16, came to a boarding school in Central Florida to continue our education. In 2 months, everything changed. Our world was turned upside down when the United States hostages were taken in Iran. That was November 1979. In the 45 years I have lived in the United States, there has never been a time of peace between Iran and the United States. So I would cautiously respond when someone would ask me where I'm from. It was never Iran. It was always, where do you think I'm from? I worked really hard to lose my foreign accent. And whenever they guessed, whatever they guessed, they were right. I was from whatever country they thought I was from. That is until we arrived in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm skipping over a whole bunch of my story. You can read more about it in the book. It's available at Francie and Finch. It's called Lead Like People Matter. My husband was an active duty member of the United States Navy. We're fast forwarding, okay? 15 years from that. We're fast forwarding. My husband was an active duty member of the United States Navy, and it was time for him to transfer off the ship to what is now called shore duty. At that point, he'd spent his entire Navy career on board ships. So he casually said, "Get me as far away from the ocean as you can possibly do." And that's how we landed in Lincoln, Nebraska. We were a young family of 4. Our sons were 2 and 6 when we arrived in Lincoln in November of 1992. Our first residence was in the air park. It was housing that was close to the Naval Reserve Center where Scott worked. We decided to sacrifice and for me to go back to school instead of getting a job. So we would live on only my husband's military salary. We had no debt, so it made it a little easier, but because of my husband's rank and pay, we qualified for Section 8 housing, low income, free lunch for our kids, WIC, and family service programs. Moving to Nebraska was extremely hard. I had moved so many times in my life that I had just had a hard time adjusting. But being in school made it easier. And it made it harder because, well, 2 kids, no money, you're a student. Fast forward again, Scott had an injury at work one day and eventually was discharged from the military early in 1997. So he became a disabled veteran. He went back to school, and he finished his degree at Doane in 2002. I continued my education, and I got different internships and eventually finished a master's degree at Doane and a PhD at UNL. I'm going to back up a little bit and tell you. In 1999, I created and led the diversity and cultural competence programs at Bryan Health. The first ever. As part of that position, I got to participate in Leadership Lincoln. It was during the first weekend of Leadership Lincoln that I sat and told my full story. No one at that point knew everything I'd been through. Tears fell with each word I shared. My cohort of 40-plus community leaders sat intently listening. I was being vulnerable for the very first time. No more hiding behind, where do you think I'm from? My classmates were gracious with their listening ears, with their words, their tender hugs, and their own tears. I began serving on the New Americans Task Force in the late 90s when I learned about their existence so that I could help share the information with the colleagues at Bryan Health. I also served on the adult basic education programs at SCC. I wanted to bring English language classes to Bryan for our staff. I partnered with Lincoln Literacy to provide a location at Bryan West and Bryan East for English conversation for community members and our staff. I saw the way family members were being used as interpreters, and it bothered me to no end. During my master's program at Doane, I conducted research to understand the impact of family interpretation on the patient and the family, which is what led to me helping SCC create their medical interpreter training program. Then 9/11 happened. I was scheduled to do a training at Goodwill Industries. When I arrived that morning to do the training, all I kept thinking is, God, please don't let it be Iranians who attacked the towers. My body went back to what I'd experienced in 1979. The hate crimes were becoming real. It was painful to watch. Depression and anxiety became my constant friends, but I felt called to my work at Bryan. We were doing some innovative stuff to connect newcomers in the community to health and jobs. American Hospital Association recognized us for our work. Joint Commission recognized us for our work. We were part of a study that was being done in hospitals around the country in addressing patient needs by providing culturally and linguistically appropriate services. We were the first hospital in Lincoln to post signs in multiple languages to tell patients about their rights and access to free medical interpreters. The council I led at Bryan was made up of professionals committed to the diversity and cultural competence in our community. I can't remember all the boards I served on during my time. Everything from Community and Health Endowment, Lincoln Lancaster Women's Commission, YWCA. But my service helped me to see a different process and push the status quo with each encounter. While this isn't part of the chapter, being up here in this room, it reminded me, I met with Pat Leach when she first thought about wanting to expand the library to be a place for people from different languages, and I gave her insight as to how to do that. While Lincoln was and is better than most communities, we have a lot of work to do, and I'm not afraid of hard work. I would always take my kids and my husband to all the events. My kids grew up attending New Americans Task Force events, serving Meals on Wheels, serving at Matt Talbot Kitchen, Good Neighbor Center, helping with welcoming immigrants and refugees into our homes. My husband and I were dedicated. We wanted to give back the way people had given to us when we first arrived in Nebraska. Our friend and family practice physician, Dr. Rob Rhodes, called me one day out of the blue. I was in my office at Bryan. He had just come back from a mission trip in Mexico, and he had this vision of creating a free medical clinic in Lincoln. I was all on board with what he was saying, whatever I could do. And so we began Clinic with a Heart. I invited him to speak to our council at the hospital. I was volunteering one night a month myself. And because the council members were committed, they took their idea to their churches, their schools, and Bryan began a clinic night as well. I served on the board of Clinic with a Heart for many years and continue to support them to this day because I believe in the mission of their program. I was also part of the team that went to the Philippines to recruit nurses to address the nursing shortage in Nebraska in the early 2000s. My role was the acculturation of our new nurses and the domestic nurses and physicians who were working here. I invited our domestic staff to be pen pals to the incoming nurses. One of the greatest joys of my life was when one of our former nurses contacted me after living in Nebraska for several years. Her daughter was a toddler when they moved here. And she said, Helen, my daughter's coming to attend Bryan College of Health Sciences from California to go to college. Would you help her? Another great joy of my life was giving the commencement address at Southeast Community College and seeing one of our nurses in the audience as the proud parent of a graduate. Her daughter was also a toddler when they arrived in Lincoln, Nebraska. I was blown away when Larry Williams asked me to serve as the speaker for the Martin Luther King breakfast in 2005, which was hosted by the City of Lincoln and University of Nebraska. It was the first time I would publicly stand in a large group and share a bit of my story. I was enamored when Colleen Sang came up to me, then mayor, came up to me and gave me a key to the city for the work I'd done in helping Lincoln become a welcoming community. Chancellor Perlman thanked me after my speech and said, "Thanks for challenging us. Thanks for being here and helping us to be better." And that's where I'll end.
Our next speaker is Amir Wali. Amir was born and raised in Dakuk Kirkuk Province, Iraq, and graduated from Al-Mustansiriya University in Baghdad, Iraq in 2003. He then worked for the U.S. Army as an interpreter-translator, and in 2008 he arrived in the U.S. with his wife and daughter. In 2016, Amir graduated from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln with a Master of Arts in French Literature. Amir currently works at Lincoln Literacy, helping newcomers hone and develop essential employment skills and find work. Welcome, Amir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today. I really enjoy listening to the amazing stories. It's really motivating. And I would like to share my story with you. I named it Strangers in Mesopotamia, as I am from Iraq, feeling home in Lincoln, Nebraska. As you mentioned, I was born to an average Iraqi family in Kirkuk province, which is located in northern Iraq. My parents were both illiterate and never had a chance to attend schools. My dad was a school guard and my mom was a housewife. I was diagnosed with polio in my right leg and foot at the age of 2. Until today, I think it was a medical mistake, but I don't have proof. Yeah, but my mom said that she feels that there was some mishandling of the immunization at the time. We are talking about 1980s. So I was diagnosed with polio. My childhood was not pleasant, unfortunately. The general atmosphere of my family and the country were not doing well. The regime of Saddam Hussein confiscated our agricultural lands to donate them to the Arabs who were brought from other parts of Iraq. In the meantime, Iraq was involved in a bloody war with Iraq's eastern neighbor, Iran. I'm sorry, but that's the history. Yeah. Yes, so this war resulted in the death of an outnumber of Iraqi soldiers. During this time, I remember that my mom and most women in my city were always wearing black color dresses to show their grief for the loss of the soldiers who were husbands, sons, brothers, uncles, and relatives of them. I also remember my female teachers at the time when I was going to elementary school wearing black, and their faces were covered with impressions of sadness and sorrow for the loss of their husbands and beloved ones. I remember that we were going through financial difficulties. My dad's salary was not enough to cover the expenses of our family of 7. We were 3 brothers and 2 sisters, and I was the middle one. At the age of 10, myself and my older brother were selling roasted sunflower seeds I wrote in little bags, but my wife, she had a better idea. I think you said in the cone, like we turn the paper this way, like the way that we were doing it. So when we had papers, like we were doing kind of like this, not perfect, but and then we put the sunflower seeds in it, and then we cover it this way, and then we sell it to people. Yeah, so that was a good way of making money at that age of 10. Then we started working on farms and that were owned by the Arabs. We were working all day from sunrise to sunset, making 2 Iraqi dinars at that time. Now, 2 Iraqi dinars was equal to about maybe $3 today, like at that time. But then things changed. Ironically, these farms and lands were owned once by my ancestors. And I'm going to tell you why. Because Saddam Hussein wanted to do the political change in Kirkuk. So they confiscated the lands from the Kurds and the Turkmen and donated them to the Arabs. While my mom was picking reed stalks on the sides of the canals to make handmade brooms to sell them for, at the time, it was quarter of a dinar. It was maybe $2 today. On August 2nd, 1990, we woke up on the news of Iraq invading its southern Arabic neighbor, Kuwait. The regime of Saddam was claiming that Kuwait is part of Iraq and that it was separated from Iraq by the British colonialism. The regime raised the slogan of the return of the branch to the origin. This event had an unpleasant effect on Iraqi people as it meant another bloody war. We just came out of a war that lasted for 8 years, started in 1980 and stopped in 1988. And now we're in 1990, we are involved in another bloody war. I still remember when I went with my mom to visit my grandpa's house in the village. The women were all gathered in the guest room, which was a large rectangular structure made of mud bricks and wood roof covered with mud mixed with hay. They were wearing black and signs of anxiety and fear were obvious in their faces. They were talking about the upcoming war in Kuwait and how the Iraqi army has to face a coalition of 33 armies in the lead of the United States of America. I remember one woman said in anger and sadness, "This time America will kill all our men." Because we have lost a lot of men during the war with Iran. Now it's coming another war, and now with the superpowers. So people were terrified at that time. On January 17th, 1991, the United States Air Force and its allies started their airstrikes on Iraq's military forces and Iraqi infrastructure. The war was in southern Iraq, but the coalition forces Air Force strikes were targeting the whole country. My province is located, like Kirkuk is located in north of Iraq, but all services facilities were paralyzed. Schools were shut down, no gas was available at the gas stations, no electricity, no transportation, and no drinking water from faucets available. I always tell my wife and my children, we need to have dry food all the time. And by dry foods, I mean mostly rice, beans, lentils, because those are easy to cook, especially during wartime. Now, luckily here we have canned food. At that time, we didn't have canned food. We had dry food, which would help us to survive during the wartime. Now, my family was served only 2 meals a day that consisted of dry food that my parents saved before war started, like rice, wheat, and dry beans. At night, we were all gathered around a small radio listening to war news. It was a difficult time that we had to go through for not a good reason. During this time in the 90s, people my age, I was very young at that time, I think I was in my teenage age, people my age were thinking of leaving Iraq and migrating towards European countries. This was full of risks, and death was the end of many people. Some were able to make it to Europe. On October 1999, I took my first trip to Baghdad. I was traveling to join the University of Al-Mustansriya. I was accepted into the College of Literature and Fine Arts French Literature Department. I was staying in the dorm. Every 4 students were sharing one room. The reason why I like to mention this thing, because now our children complain that they want a room by themselves. And we are, as parents, we are forced to make it available. And that's what I did. And we had to buy a new house, me and my wife, and go through bigger mortgage, monthly payment mortgage, just to make sure that to provide a bedroom for each of our daughters. But my time, I had to share a dorm room with 4 of my colleagues. Every 4 students were sharing one room. We had to cook our own food and do all the work to keep our rooms clean and to study hard. Although I was coming from a low-income family, I liked the life in Baghdad. It was crowded and busy all the time. By mid-2006, the first sergeant of our company at Fab Bernstein in Iraq, where I worked as a translator, a national translator, made all translators, interpreters aware of a new program made specifically for Afghan and Iraqi translators to obtain a visa to travel to the US. The program was called Special Immigrant Visa for the Afghan and Iraqi translator interpreters, known as SIV. It was after the kidnapping and killing of a significant number of translators by terrorist groups. The requirements were to work for the US Army as a translator or an interpreter and to obtain a recommendation from a US general. This was a long process to obtain a recommendation from US general. The first time I obtained a recommendation from an admiral, from a Danish admiral, but they didn't take it. So now I had to work to get one from a US general. It was not easy to obtain a recommendation from a US general. Our company commander, who was a captain at the time, had to go through his chain of command in order to request a general recommendation for us to be qualified for the SIV program. This process was slow and complicated. Eventually, my application was approved by the USCIS in the beginning of 2008 after receiving a recommendation from a US general. I had to go to the US Embassy in Baghdad for the visa interview and the medical check. I went to Baghdad 3 times, and it was a journey full of danger and horror. The road from my city to Baghdad was going through cities under the influence of the terrorist groups that would establish checkpoints whenever they had the opportunity. Many individuals were killed, kidnapped, or disappeared while traveling that road. On November 4th, 2008, I arrived in the US through the SIV program along with my wife and my daughter. My daughter is 17 years old now. She was 1 year old when we arrived. We spent the night in a 2-star hotel in New York City. Then we flew to Columbia, South Carolina. At the airport, we were received by 2 ladies from the resettlement agency. By the end of November 2012, we arrived in Lincoln, Nebraska, driving from South Carolina. We drove through many states, and we stopped in several gas stations and rest areas for breaks and fuel for our minivan. It took us 2 days and 1 night to arrive in Lincoln, Nebraska. While driving in Nebraska towards Lincoln, while driving in Nebraska towards Lincoln, we noticed less trees and more farms. I remember also that we liked seeing clear. We noticed less trees and more farms. Grain silos looked remarkable from a distance in the middle of the green, white farms. I remember also that we liked seeing clearly the twinkling stars in the sky of Nebraska, while it was difficult to see the stars in South Carolina because of the high tree density. I graduated from UNL in December 2016 with an MA from the Department of Modern Languages and Literature. The graduation was a great event for myself and my family. I was feeling proud of myself among my colleagues and feeling pleased to see my wife and my daughter waving, and my daughters. Now I have 3 daughters. I came with 1, now I have 3. So, waving at me while going through the graduation ceremony. It was a great day. Nebraska is home for me. I like living and staying here. It provides a safe place to raise my daughters. My advice to new legal arrivals to Lincoln, Nebraska, to take advantage of the many nonprofit organizations that we have in our beautiful city and state to receive free English classes, food and shelter. It is also important and essential to have a plan and a road map to invest in yourself through education and learning new skills. Becoming self-sufficiency is the key to having a good life and achieving the American dream of ourselves and our children. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Mariana Munoz de Shell, who is originally from Mexico City, where she earned a business administration degree from the Instituto Tecnológico de Estudios Superiores de Monterrey. She holds a Master's of Arts degree in Management from Doane University and has over 13 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. Mariana is deeply committed to her community and passionate about making a positive impact. She is currently serving as the chair of the New Americans Task Force, a position which our friend Helen held originally many years ago. Since she's lived in Lincoln since 1997, she is married and the proud mother to 2 daughters in college. Welcome, Mariana.
Hi. I'm just going to read a little extract, so it's going to be not quite, as seamless. So if it's a little jumpy, please, you can ask me questions later on upstairs if you want to. But I'm very honored to being here with you guys. And LaShawn, he's the guilty, and Lisa, that I'm here today. But I am very, very proud and honored to be here. Well, my name is Mariana Munoz de Shell, and I was born in Mexico City. My parents are Victor, who is a civil engineer, and Patricia, who is a public accountant. I am an only child, which is really weird for Mexican families, Mexican Catholic families. But I am now a wife, and to my best friend and partner of crime, my husband Ron, and mother of 2 wonderful daughters, which one is here today. I like to consider myself a justice warrior, professional, and a proud human being that believes in being kind to all people. I started my career at Tecnológico de Estudios Superiores de Monterrey in Campus Querétaro, one of the best universities in Mexico, or actually in the worldwide recognized, but nobody knows about it. So I always have to explain that to people. I studied business administration, and my university had exchange programs with universities around the world, and that's how I got to meet people from the United States. After I graduated, I wanted to come and visit my friend Lina, who I have originally met in Querétaro. And we called each other sisters, and we really became really close. I came here originally to Lincoln, Nebraska to visit her for 2 months and was sleeping in her couch. And she suggested that I could apply to be a Spanish tutor at the university. So that's what I did. I got 2 phone calls. One was for a student that wanted, a session at that moment of time. But I was heading out to Wyoming to go skiing to Laramie. So like, call me next week and I will help you. He never called me back. So then my second call was from an old gentleman. His name is Daryl, and he called me, and I said, well, after my first client had never returned, like, I better really take care of this client. So we met, and he liked me, and we started meeting for lunches. I remember I was charging $5 an hour. So he's like, what about if I just pay you for your lunch and call it even? I said, okay, that's fine. So we started meeting every week, every so often, and he wanted to practice his Spanish with me. After a while, Daryl asked me if I wanted to live here in the States and travel for work, and I'm like, travel? I had paid travel and vacation? Like, I'm in. So he's really the one that gave me the opportunity, to start this here. After almost 25 years of knowing Daryl, I just saw him a couple of weeks ago. And I asked him, I said, Daryl, why did you ask me for that job opportunity? Why did you want to offer that to me? And he said that they were looking for someone that knew the Mexican culture, that knew also the business sides, that was friendly and educated and bilingual, and willing to try new things. I really think that many people see me as a petite girl with an accent, but he was able to recognize in me the strength that I have. And even though I was very young and out of college, I had the desire to try and learn new things. And there is no other way for me than just really emerging and throwing myself into new opportunities. I clearly remember the first time, once I was here, that I needed to fill the HR forms. Of course, the HR VP was very nice and was helping me and explaining to me all the different reasons and uses for those forms. But I still remember to this day what I needed to select when there was the white, black, Asian. And I asked the Vice President of Human Resources, why do I have to do that? And where is the human option? I'm just a human. I just didn't understand why they needed that. And by the way, it still doesn't make any sense to this day. But that's a different chapter of the thing. Another one of the big differences, after many years and now being a mom, is that my parenting style. My parenting style, I have been criticized for being a helicopter mom. But really, that's the only way that I know how to parent. That's how my mom did that to me. My grandparents did to her. And my mother was always very involved within my schools, and she wanted to know my friends and their families and everything. And I just did the same thing. And my husband and I just laugh at some of our parties with our children. Like, parents will come, they barely gave enough time for the kids to jump out of the car, and they just left. And I'm like, well, our house is open. If you want to come in, like, you don't know me, I don't know you, but you're always welcome. And that was very, funny, but not really that funny to me. I just don't understand that. Another funny or different situation that I experienced when my daughters were babies in Mexico, when they're born, you can tell the doctor that, can you please pierce their ears? And here that was not like, are you kidding me? Like, are you really gonna, like, why don't you give them a tattoo or something? Like, no, I don't want that, but it's just, so some of those very differences, have made me really try to discover myself and try to still stand and true to my culture and my traditions. But I am very grateful to be here. I am very grateful for the couple of people that I know, that they have encouraged me. And so thank you so very much.
Our last speaker is LaShawn Taruru, who is a Lincoln-born Kenyan. He embraces both cultures fully throughout his life. LaShawn is a public servant who works in safety and risk assessment at Lincoln Transportation and Utilities. He is a graduate of Lincoln's My City Academy and a leader in the New Americans Task Force. He makes new friends everywhere he goes and always has a smile and a kind word to share. Welcome, LaShawn.
Thank you, Lisa. About the friendship, I try to make friends, but I don't know about the smile. So I was talking to Jodine, and I talked to Mariana, and they told me just read what you think you can, and I've decided to only read the table of contents from. Yes. Honestly, after being here, I feel embarrassed because my story is not exciting as Amir's or Dr. Helen. I liked your story about Ukraine and your diversity, and I always appreciate. I met Amir last year, and last year, right? Yeah. And I appreciate. I don't have a very interesting story, so I'll attempt to read. If it's boring, just yawn or put your hands up, and I'll go away. So, Dr. Helen, I'll try to be as eloquent as you are. If I fail, please forgive me. No comparison. All right. No, I'll read sections of and if you want the rest, buy the book. It's remarkable how seemingly a small event can redirect the course of one's life. For me, it was such a moment occurred one evening at an event where Lisa Guil asked me, have you added your story to Your Story Matters book? I laughed off, haha. I thought, what story do I have worth telling? Her relentless encouragement and the wisdom of the director of Lincoln Lancaster County Emergency Management, who once said, if you stumble upon a good cause, run with it. If not, switch gears. Find something that fits, planted a seed in me. Standing there with Lisa, her words of encouragement ringing in my ears alongside the director's words of wisdom, I realized that sharing my story wasn't just about me. It was honoring the people and the experience that has shaped me. Maybe, just maybe, inspire someone else along the way. It was a good cause, a path worth exploring. So here I am. The seed we started grew into a memoir, a testament of heritage, to struggle, and to strange harmony between a Maasai warrior's legacy and a Midwestern sound's calling. It's a proof that every Maasai kid, that even a Maasai kid from Nebraska can find his own good fit in the world. April 2nd, 1984. A spring of flowers dared to poke the heads of the thawing ground. So did a little life begin, mine. Born to Maasai parents, far from the ancestral land, I entered the world as LaShawn Darius Taruru, a name that unbeknownst known to me would become a bridge between cultures. Before diving into my story, it's important to understand a bit about the Maasai people, my heritage and identity. The Maasai are a Nilotic ethnic group inhabiting southern Kenya and northern Tanzania, known for their distinctive customs, dress, and strong connection to the land. Traditionally pastoralist, Maasai culture centers are on cattle herding as the backbone of their social and economic life, and bravery and community deeply valued virtues. Their vibrant ceremonies, warrior traditions, and harmonious relationship with nature have fascinated many, including myself, as I grew up bridging the world of Maasai culture and Western society. My father's journey to the United States was remarkable. To the United States was marked by athletic prowess and as well as academic ambition. He arrived on a track and field scholarship to the University of Wyoming, specializing in the 440 yards. That was before the 400 meters dash. For several years, my father proudly held the university record in the event, a testament to his dedication and talent. After completing his master's degree, he pursued his PhD in the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, where fate led, he met my mother. She had initially studied at CMSU, which was Central Missouri State University, now called the University of Central Missouri, and shared love for education and determination, becoming the foundation of our family. The blend of athleticism, scholarship, and cultural pride set a stage to the journeys becoming for our life to become. All right, I forgot where. Sorry, I forgot. Michelle had told me to make sure I read. All right, sorry. Life in Lincoln was simple, but saturated with love. My parents worked hard tirelessly, determining to provide us with simultaneous keeping of our Maasai heritage alive. Ma and Swahili mingled within our walls. Mom, with her talent in storytelling, painted a vivid picture of our people, pastoralists living in harmony with cattle, as the bloodline of our identity and the bravery of our ultimate virtues. Then, just as I was settling in and to understand the rhymes of Nebraska life, my parents dropped a bombshell. We are moving to Kenya. At 3 years old, I felt it was the biggest adventure imaginable, a leap to the unknown. Beginning a new chapter in Kenya. 3 years old, what do you really understand at that time? For me, living in Nebraska was less about understanding and more about a wide-eyed wonder. I was going on an adventure. As we boarded the plane, I clung onto my mother's hands, my tiny heart hammering with anticipation. I can tell this from the pictures that were taken. So I remember there's a picture of me climbing into her hands. That's I remember. The flight stretched forever, but my parents kept me entertained with the fascinating tales of Kenya, a land where lions roared in the night and giraffes grazed beneath the endless skies. Stepping off the plane in Nairobi was like entering a technicolor or dream. The warm Kenyan sun kissed my cheeks and the air smelled different, earth, vibrant and alive. We wasted no time settling in soon. We were living in a manyata, a traditional Maasai homestead, complete with mud huts and thorny fence that seemed to whisper secrets of ancient traditions. Life in Kenya was a world away from the neat lawns and paved streets of Lincoln. Suddenly, I was surrounded by vast open space where cows roamed freely, children played barefoot under the African sun. The Maasai community embraced us with open arms, their smiles as warm as the Kenyan sun itself. I quickly learned that being part of the vibrant culture meant embracing its customs. My days were a whirlwind of laughter and learning as I played with local children. We chased the goats through the field, our joy echoing across the savannah. They taught me the art of throwing a rungu, which is a wooden club. I've skilled every Maasai boy needed to master. I probably looked ridiculous at first, but their laughter was good-natured and eventually got a hang of it. One of our earliest memories is attending traditional ceremonies, where music and dance filled the air with electric energy. Men leaped into the sky during the adumu, which is the dancing dance, showcasing their strength and agility. I tried to mimic their jumps, feeling like a tiny warrior, even though my feet barely left the ground. And then there was food. Goodbye, mac and cheese. Hello, hello ugali. The staple made of maize flour. The staple became a fast favorite, especially served with sukuma wiki, which is collard greens, nyama choma, roasted meat, fresh milk from our cows, became a daily indulgence, and my taste buds had never been the same since, till today. And that's why I appreciate the Iraqi food, because we have that in common, and Nebraska milk. Yeah. As I grew older, my connection to the Maasai roots deepened. My father became my personal history teacher, explaining how cattle weren't just livestock; they were a symbol of wealth, status, and survival. He taught me to read the land, track animals by their footprint, understand weather patterns by observing nature's cues. The land speaks, he'd say. You just have to listen. Of course, being caught between two worlds wasn't easy. Was I an American kid who loved baseball, or a Maasai learning to herd cattle? There were times I felt like an outsider, no matter where I was, too American for Kenya and too Kenyan for America. But the formative years laid the foundation for who I became, a bridge between cultures, a man with unique perspective, and a man with unique perspectives of life. Little did I know that the duality would become my strength as life continued to unfold in ways I couldn't have imagined. Should I continue or should I stop? I'll ask Michelle. Sorry, let me blow my nose then. Give me a commercial break. I will skip a few, as I said. If you want more of it, buy the book. All right. In Kenya, my dad became a professor at the university called Egerton University. He was seconded by the University of Nebraska. He used to lecture here, so the University of Nebraska had an exchange program with Kenyan University, so he was there. He was the chairman of the biological sciences, so that is not captured in the book, but the rest by the book. At Egerton University, Dad became a respected figure among students and faculty alike. He didn't just lecture, he inspired. He challenged students to question assumptions, to think critically, to innovate. As a curious child, I sometimes tagged along his lectures, sitting quietly in the back, absorbing the energy of eager minds grasping bit of the new ideas. And there was our extended family, a sprawling network of relatives that stretched across continent. My mother boasted 69 cousins, while my father's side topped 80. You were an only child? We were 69. Yes. Family gathering was legendary, filled with music, laughter, and intoxicating aroma of traditional Maasai dishes. Lovingly prepared by a chorus of aunties, Dad was always captivating storytelling. And people in Maasai land believe Lincoln, Nebraska is the only place that exists. So because my father talked about Lincoln, Nebraska and the Cornhuskers a lot. So by the time I returned to the United States for college, I felt like a walking, talking cultural experience. I was a Maasai kid with an American passport, a Kenyan hat, a Nebraska twang. Enrolling at the University of Nebraska was like stepping into a familiar yet foreign planet. My parents, champions of education, had instilled in me the importance of taking the most important lesson. So I drove headfirst. I chose economics, a major in economics, a subject that fascinated me with the ability to explain how the world works, how resources flow, how decisions are made, and how societies prosper, or rather don't prosper. But college wasn't just about academics. I wanted to experience everything UNL had to offer. I landed a job at the Love Library where my parents had met, where I spent hours shelving books, helping students find resources, and sneaking into a few chapters of my own readings when no one was looking. It was there I discovered the power of the stories, the ability of words to transport you to other worlds and introduce new perspectives, what I call wordsmithing. I'll keep again. My mother's presence at my university graduation was poignant and a cherished milestone. She had traveled from Kenya to attend my graduation in August 2008, a proud moment we both celebrated. Tragically, a few months later, in December 2008, she passed away. Her death was a profound loss that affected me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to all of our speakers. You should know, too, that each of these individuals has played a part in a new announcement, if you have not heard yet, that Lincoln is officially a 4-star certified welcoming community, and it's the result of many, many people. Yeah, we can applaud for that. It is the result of the hard work for many years by hundreds of Lincolnites, native-born Lincolnites and newcomer Lincolnites alike, and everyone here has played a part in that. So thank you so much. Thank you for your contribution to this book. Thank you to my partners, Matt Bakavoy with University of Nebraska Press, and Michelle Hassler, retired journalism teacher from UNL. We really appreciate your support of this, and we will be incredibly excited to launch this book about a year from now, hopefully tangentially with Lincoln Welcoming Week 2026. We are over time, so I don't know if you want to take a few minutes to do the Q&A now, or should we just head upstairs and you can talk to people there? Does anyone have a burning question at the moment? Okay, let's go upstairs and get some refreshments. Take everyone off the hot seats here. Please feel free to approach any of us to ask questions that you have. Thank you for your time today.